quick.
Excellent. All right. Well, I've said in the introductions, I'm Frank Greenhill, Stormwater Program Specialist, and Adam Oliver. He's our Stormwater Program Manager. Very excited to present this to you guys today. This has been a long time in the works. Russ Smith is also involved in this program, but he's not able to make it today. But if there are some questions that Russ might be able to better answer, we can get those over to him. So, but yeah, we're the three main players in this facilities plan update. And this presentation is just going to be pretty much an overview of kind of everything we're doing, what's been done on the present, or what's been done on the facilities plan update, and additional engagement opportunities as well. So just a couple definitions and acronyms real quick. I'm pretty sure most of the group is familiar with, but we are the stormwater division. We deal with stormwater, which just runoff generated from rain and snow melt events flown over hard surfaces. That's what we manage here in the stormwater division. A big reason why we do that is because of the MS4 permit, which is our small municipal separate storm sewer permit that DEQ issues us, that we strive day in and day out to comply with. The term LID, I'm sure this group is very familiar with that, but in the world of stormwater, low impact development is just using natural processes to manage stormwater runoff and to improve water quality as well as decrease flood risk. And then getting really into stormwater specific jargon, post-construction feature. These are engineered facilities that are designed to control and or treat stormwater runoff from developed areas. Examples of those could be a retention pond, a detention pond. We're seeing a lot more underground retention and detention systems, as well as permeable pavers. So these features are primarily flood control devices, but you do get a co-benefit of stormwater runoff treatment via settling and just control of downstream erosion. And then probably the most technical acronym we have is the ERU. It stands for Equivalent Residential Unit. And what that is, it's the average amount of impervious area on a single family residential lot here in Bozeman. And it happens to be 2,700 square feet. The reason why this number is important, this term is important, is because this ties in directly to how we bill our customers. And we'll get into how we bill. Adam we'll discuss our finances here in just a few slides, but that is how we collect our money, is through ERUs. So moving on, a little bit about stormwater here in Bozeman. This group, you've heard me say it many times. We discharge our stormwater directly into creeks and lakes and ponds around town. Stormwater's not going to a treatment plant before it discharges. So one of our big program drivers is we're here to improve waterway health. And we also need to protect public safety from flooding as well as from, stormwater induced water quality events. And that photo here really shows that. That's on Bozeman Creek, just after a little 1/10 of an inch rainstorm. So you can really see the plume discharging into the creek. And then finally, we are required by law to comply with our stormwater MS4 discharge permit. And in order to accomplish all these things, it does take money. So I will let Adam explain to you how we get our money and how we spend our money.
Thanks. So yeah, everybody is affected by stormwater. Rain hits everything, of course. We're all using the public streets, but then there are bigger contributors to runoff, hence the charge being based on the amount of impervious areas that you have. So it's actually split into two charges. If you get a water bill, if you have a water meter in the city of Bozeman, you'll see this on your bill. So there's a flat charge that everybody gets, just this one amount, $4.53 per meter. And then the variable charge is the one that's based on the amount of impervious area. So the next slide will show what it actually goes to, but the idea is that there are credit for properties that have stormwater features, post-construction features that Frank was talking about in the definition slide. And those actually qualify properties for a credit because they are already providing some storage and water quality treatment on their site before it ever gets to the city's stormwater system or to receiving waters. So it's not that complicated of a calculation. Anyway, it's basically a 45% credit on that variable charge is the way that it's set up right now. So one single house, we don't try to nitpick whether you have a little bit bigger house or a little bit smaller house than somebody else. If you're a single family house, you just get billed one, and then everything larger than that is in multiples. So if you have a business with a really big parking lot, you might have 25 or 30 ERUs. So what does that go towards? That's our sole source of funds is ratepayers. So that goes toward deferred maintenance. For instance, fixing 130-year-old pipes. We've still got a lot of those that are left in the ground, and we're lucky to have gotten that long of a lifespan out of them. So we need to start replacing them a little quicker. There are just other system upgrades as well as cleaning and equipment to accomplish all that. That's around $650,000 a year. Our utility operations, which is just keeping up with cleaning those catch basins and pipes, as well as the contracted services we need to make the bills go out and the lights stay on, and pencils and boring administrative things, but they all add up, and those are around $800,000 a year. And then approximately $250,000 per year, although this one really varies a lot by what project we might have approved that year, are system enhancements such as flood control and water quality improvement projects. I would say we're actually probably a little higher than that right now. I think what we've picked up through growth and inflation over the last couple of years has probably gone more into that category. And we'll talk a little more about those capital projects later. So that totals 1.7. I think we're probably on track to be a little higher than that this year. And I think where it'll all go is that system enhancements, because it just costs a lot to contract out pipe replacement, or hydrodynamic separators are one of the things that we're putting in that treat water in line as it's passing down the pipe. And $250 barely gets you one of those anymore, where that used to get you about 3 of them. So big emphasis on that.
So I guess, 1.7 million as far as utility goes, isn't that much money, but it's still a big chunk of change. And we need to spend that money as efficiently as possible. So since 2008, the division has been operating under a 2008 stormwater facilities plan. And that plan primarily addressed, or the main thing out of that 2008 plan was, you guys need to develop and implement a stormwater program. And we've done that now. We've got a program. We've accomplished a lot of the actual individual projects that were included in that plan. So we've just, that 2008 facilities plan has run its course for the most part. So we are now working on this 2025 plan. The goals of that plan are really, a big one is to update our post-construction policies. We're hoping to get out of this a big menu of capital improvement investments. And with that big, menu of projects that we can do, be it pipe projects or water quality or hybrid type projects, we'll be able to better collaborate with other city projects. So other cities will know our long-term plan, and if they're going to reconstruct a street somewhere in like 8 years, that we can better align stormwater needs with street reconstruction projects or a water main replacement. And then it's also, we do live in a world of changing regulations. So it's gonna look at what's it gonna take for the division to continue to comply with its MS4 permits. And a big one is, this is gonna take staffing to accomplish this plan. So it will identify the staffing needs based on different levels of service, which we hope to get this group's input on. So what does our staffing need look like to accomplish the chosen level of service chosen by the commission of this plan? What is all that going to cost? And I will say just currently, the stormwater division between administration staff and operations and maintenance staff, we have 8 full-time employees that we pay for, but we do get quite a bit of assistance from other divisions, from engineering to streets. We're all one big team, but the most granular you can get in that data is we are currently at 8 full-time employees. So really one of the ways to accomplish the goals of this facilities plan, one of the first ones too is like, we want to align with currently adopted plans here in the city. That consistency is very important to us. And to start, 2 of the main plans are the Bozeman Community Plan, as well as the Climate Action Plan. And I believe this group is pretty dang familiar with those. I believe there were probably formal comments, I know for at least the Climate Action Plan submitted by this group, but in both those plans, resiliency is a major theme. So those plans each have, I'll just take the community plan, for example. R1 is pretty much a goal in the plan to continue to strengthen and develop resilience. And in that goal, there are specific action items that are called out that we would love input on that could potentially be incorporated into maybe the capital planning section of the stormwater facilities plan update. So for a little bit of homework to, I guess, make a very, I'm trying to think the best word to call community input, but like a strong way to provide comment on this plan is to base input on these already established plans. So maybe some homework for the group is going through these plans. What do you like about them as it relates to stormwater facilities plan update? A great basis for public input. So Bozeman Community Plan, Bozeman Climate Plan are 2 plans that are good to be familiar with when thinking about providing input. A couple other ones would be the Bozeman Creek Enhancement Plan. Looking at this one, we've accomplished a lot in here. And then the Parks, Recreation, and Active Transportation Plan. There might be some other plans that could be germane to this, but these are the 4 that really stuck out to me. So again, researching these plans, and if anybody has trouble finding these plans, feel free to shoot me an email and I can dig them up for you and send them to you. So again, resiliency is kind of a theme in these 2, but not near as much as the first 2 plans. But really the Bozeman Creek Plan, improve water quality and support aquatic life and primary recreation contact. That's a really big one for us, and we're doing that every day. So yeah, aligning with currently adopted plans is a big thing that we are trying to accomplish with our facilities plan update. Some work that we have already done on this facilities plan update is so for our post-construction program, again, post-construction is how we're managing stormwater runoff from these developed areas. So we have interviewed other cities, Kalispell for one. We interviewed Kirtland, Washington, I think Redmond, Oregon, Bend, Oregon, and we interviewed them on a suite of things, from policy to division structure, just about their programs as a whole, to just figure out what other programs are doing. Programs that are more advanced than us that have, worked through this post-construction portion of stormwater already. Our consultant Dow, they also reviewed our current post-construction program by looking at our existing policies, ordinances, some of our inspection documents, etc., just to see what we're currently doing and what we're currently not doing. And Dow also went out and did a condition assessment of a subset of our existing post-construction facilities in town. And the results were not great on those. It just showed that we've got a lot of backlog on maintenance. These facilities, there are about over 1,000 in the city. Bozeman is very unique in that situation where we might be the highest in the country in number of post-construction facilities per capita. And that is due to the fact of all of our spring creeks, irrigation ditches, drainage ways, you name it. It's very easy to make a lot of small, decentralized post-construction features here versus just a few really large regional ones. So yeah, we've got, if you guys want to get into the specifics of that, we're hosting an actual post-construction program engagement on Thursday. So you can email me if you'd like to get on that list for that one. That'd be Thursday 1 to 3, shameless plug. Our consultant also did a financial review.
Hey, Frank,
Yes, ma'am.
just one thing that I found astonishing about those over 1,000 facilities is that most of them are privately owned.
Yes. Yep,
And
we'll
so-
go to that on the next slide.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. And so finally, they did a financial review of our program, and to get caught up on the maintenance, just to get our post-construction facilities up to an as-designed, functioning as-designed level, we're looking at about an $18 million maintenance bill. That's just to get caught up. So not a small task ahead. They gave us, we got a little summary from it. We do have clear inspection and maintenance policy. Our design criteria for these is currently getting updated in our design standards updates. So the design of facilities, the sizing, the volume requirements, all that is not being addressed. None of the engineering portion is being addressed in this. That's all in our engineering design standards update, which is open for formal public comment for about another week. The big one what they're telling us is our current inspection program is lacking because, like Lily pointed out, there are so many of these. We are currently inspecting about 100. The city owns about 100 of them. The privately owned ones are, over 1,000, and we think that there's probably 600 unknown ones as well.
And they're probably all private,
Yeah,
and we just don't have modern records on them.
yeah. So anywhere from 1,000 to 1,600 privately owned that are not being inspected and maintained. Or a good portion of those are not being inspected and maintained. And finally, one of the big ones from the summary is we do not have a formal enforcement response plan. We knew that going into this, not only because we knew it, but DEQ told us that in a violation letter that we received from them. Our consultant told us that. This is a big piece where you guys can provide input on helping us develop that formal enforcement response plan. So that is, one of the recommendations. We need a formal enforcement response plan. The big recommendation out of this post-construction program review, though, is we should focus city efforts and city resources on inspecting only the city-owned facilities. Trying to do all the other ones would be too much for us. That's just a recommendation. And so helping us develop a program for getting those privately owned facilities inspected and maintained. How we do that, Adam, you could provide some insight on that maybe for what you heard from the post-construction interviews? Would you want to go into that, or?
Yeah, I think maybe just a couple of examples of what's out there, what are possibilities. There are these other cities, some have different geology and different layouts and different development patterns, but the themes were, who's responsible for what and how do they have to be designed. And so we took their design feedback and that went into sort of the engineering design standards process. But the ownership and maintenance piece was really interesting. Most of them had a similar layout to Bozeman, where certain features in the public right of way are maintained by the city. And then if it's on a private lot, those owners maintain them. With one exception though, I forget, there were two Washington communities right next to each other, Redmond and Kirkland. One of the two took over all of the HOA pond maintenance. So that was a huge lift. It took them years and several $1 million, but they took that strategy. The other different strategy, I would say Kalispell has the same ownership and maintenance pattern, but they have each facility owner self-inspect and upload an inspection to their city website each year. And then every 5th year, they have an engineer stamp it or certify it or do their own inspection. I think they're right about that 5th year now, so I'm not sure how that's gone for them. But those are a few different ways that other communities have dealt with this problem, but they all have a bit more of a well-developed inspection program with an actual frequency to say, here's how often we're doing it. Which is also required by our MS4 permit. We just don't have that yet. And they have a more formal enforcement response plan so that they can educate owners of these facilities and then escalate if they're not getting that maintenance done.
And so, yeah, that's about it for post-construction. It's a really big part of the program. So just, remaining work where we're really looking for input from all stakeholders involved in this, from everybody, is what kind of level of service does the public think we should be providing? From one extreme, that could be the city takes over everything and is inspecting and maintaining all, let's say, 1,600 facilities a year. To city just does the city-owned facilities, and so yeah, establishing a level of service. Great spot to provide input, whether or not we need any code updates, and then really providing input to help us craft our enforcement response plan for facilities that are not getting maintained. And those both, and we do all that, that would really cover the inspection frequency as well as responsibility. So I think I've exhausted the post-construction portion. Now we can get into the really nerdy stuff of some other work we've done as far as data collection, analysis, and monitoring to inform the rest of the plan. And I will let Adam take over on this.
Yeah, so we looked back through the historic record. Our current ponds, any pond that was designed between 1980 and present day would have been built to capture the 10-year 2-hour storm. But it's been a while. And even that was based on data from the 50s, I believe. So we grabbed all of the modern data from the airport and from MSU, kind of had to toss out a lot of data that either was incomplete or couldn't be relied on, or winter storms, if you're not really sure if they're ice or rain or what they are, you kind of have to toss those. But the good data that we had, we used to update all of those curves, and it turns out they're actually pretty close when they did it before. That we don't have any statistics to show that it's changed significantly from there, but we know we fine-tuned these curves, and then we're able to plug this into a model so we can take the older parts of the town that developed before 1980 and try to get them up toward that better level of service that we get in the newer parts of town.
Next slide.
So this is what a profile view looks like from the model. I don't have this skill set. This is Dowell did this for us, and they've got the whole pre-1980 portion of Bozeman mapped out. What you see there, the sort of gray, call that the ground. So the ground surface is up at the top. You see these little vertical slices, those are manholes. And then the white open part in the bottom are the pipes. And you can see they're increasing in size as you go downhill. And you can see there's more water in each one. So I don't know exactly the size of the storm that they ran in this model, but you can see that this pipe system is easily conveying whatever this storm is that they modeled.
And so one great thing about this modeling effort is we can see this modeling allows us to find bottlenecks in our system
Without waiting for the storm to show us.
Yes, instead of us seeing the manhole floating 3 feet in the air, which happens, a couple times a year, this model will help us know where to go to look for those to where we have nuisance flooding as well as potential major flooding around town.
So the modeling results aren't entirely finished. We'll talk about some capital projects in a minute, but the modeling is really what's going to inform what those capital projects are and where some of those highest priority areas are. An additional project that we did with this was to look at some open conveyances. I guess everyone here is probably familiar with all the various types of conveyances that might be called a creek, a ditch, a stream, or something else, or combination. We weren't trying to get into that aspect of what type of water is flowing, just to say where are a couple of these larger conveyances on the west side of town where we know where we're growing, and do those have the potential to carry some additional flow? Is that a resource for us, or is that a potential flood hazard for us in a couple of these locations? We didn't go greatly into depth, but now we at least have some baseline monitoring of 1 year's worth of flow in several of our largest conveyances out to the growth boundary. So going back to this, what I was talking about with capital projects, this is looking at it specifically from a water quality perspective. I know there's a lot of different colors here, but let's just start by looking at this bright pink line. That is the watershed divide between Mandeville Creek over here, Bozeman Creek over here. You see these blue catchments? That's where we've already focused our water quality improvements that we've done so far, like those hydrodynamic separators that are settling out extra sediment in line with the pipe. Green means that they still need to be done. And so here's another great spot to get feedback. We'll get a list of capital projects that are needed based on bottlenecks in the system, areas that don't have water quality devices or features because they were just built out before that was a requirement. And so, yeah, just helping figure out where to prioritize these projects is something that I think this group may have an interest in and the know-how to provide some feedback. There's also a couple different ways to do them sometimes. I think that might be the next slide. It's not, but it's coming in a minute. Yeah, there's just, we try to work as efficiently as we can so we don't tear up the street, divert traffic, and then do another project on top of it a couple of years later. We want to try to work as efficiently as we can. Sometimes though, we have a really, really critical piece that just needs to be done on its own. The red pipe that you see on the map is pipe that is vitrified clay. At the very youngest, it could be about 80 years old, but some of it's well over 100 years old. So those need to be replaced, or as you see in these two photos, that's a before and after, where we were able to not dig it up, but actually go from manhole to manhole, pull this liner through it and inflate it and cure it. We have a contractor do that. We don't have that equipment, but just another one of the alternatives that are available to us. You know, if we dig them up, we can put in a bigger pipe and upsize it. If we can do this method, you're stuck with whatever size pipe is there. Hit the next one. If we do this type of a layout, you have an ability to address both quantity and quality, but it takes more space. So this would be a really hard thing to do on Main Street, but maybe there's some other locations in town we could use this type of strategy. So this is showing on the left one of these hydrodynamic separators that's going to pull out some sediment, and then the water goes downstream and can infiltrate back into the ground rather than just trying to convey down the pipe and get it to the creek as fast as possible. It could actually soak in and distribute back to the groundwater. So these are the alternatives in different locations. You know, more the infiltration based versus making the pipe bigger. Then the last remaining tasks are just to try to figure out how to staff and address growth over the next 20 years, because we have the same number of people last year that we had this year, but we have, you know, 4% more city than we had to take care of a year ago. And it keeps happening every year. So if we're barely able to keep up as it is now, we know that we're just getting behind as the city grows. So there's overall looking at the needs, maintenance, rates, and sort of projecting that out over our next 20 years. So let's see, how do we do on time? We're just under 40 minutes, not too bad. But I think there's probably a lot of questions, and there's a lot more we could go into depth on any of these topics.
Yeah.
So,
as I guess before we start getting into an open discussion, we are going to request that we'll definitely take all sorts of notes and input we get from the group today. But if there could be a formal, if you so choose to submit a formal comment, you could submit that to Adam, and we would appreciate that by August 31st, so we can get it to our consultants for review. And then we do plan on coming back. Hopefully we can be on the November agenda to report back on how the input from this group was or was not incorporated into the plan. So August 31st, it's in bold for a reason. There are going to be a couple other formal engagement opportunities with the Bozeman Sustainability Board on August 14th, as well as with the Community Development Board on August 19th, and then reporting back to both those boards in November as well. Yeah, and then there's just a couple of resources down here. We do have the Engage Bozeman plan, our Bozeman Infrastructure Viewer, the Post-Construction Manual. Yeah, if you need additional detail, let us know. We can get it to you. You might not know what you're looking for because this is so niche. So just if you got any questions, let us know, and we can get you pointed in the right direction. But with that, would like to open it up to any sort of open discussions, inputs, ideas. Yeah, it's time for us to start taking notes.
Okay, and I'm just going to hold it slightly just because I have one person that I knew really wanted to say some things before we left. Could we just do clarifications right here, and then can I hold you guys on the more intense discussion just for a handful of minutes? Are either of you, Lily or Adam, are these clarifying questions?
I
Okay,
think so.
Adam, I will remember. I'll get to you. Lily.
You talked a lot about post-construction program and post-construction maintenance. What does that mean? What does post-construction maintenance look like, or what does that involve?
so each different type of feature has different maintenance, but I would say a surface pond is the most common feature we have in town. So say it's a detention pond. That's designed on day one. It has 10,000 cubic feet of storage, and it lets out water at a modeled rate. Over the years, it builds up sediment, traction sand that gets put down during the winter, leaves and vegetation grow up, and other pollutants are deposited in there. So on an annual basis, that might just be some vegetation maintenance to make sure that it doesn't get plugged up at the outlet structure. Every so often, once it's filled up with a significant amount of sediment, it would involve dredging all of that out. So that's what a surface pond might look like. Underground feature might be just getting a vac truck to it and flushing and vacuuming all of those sediments out from an underground chamber. And that might be not till every 20 years that you need to do that, but there needs to be a plan to do it. And when it's not done, there needs to be a consequence or information so that that does get done.
Okay. Great, thank you. Any other just clarifying questions before I go to Mark, just because he said he had some stuff he thought was helpful and needed to leave early. Any other clarifying questions? Okay, I'm not seeing any right now. If it's all right, I'm just gonna turn this over to Mark Oakey. As you just pointed out, vegetation can be an issue if it's an engineered detention pond, say it's plugging up, but we also know that techniques involving vegetative solutions can also be really helpful. And Mark is an expert on a bunch of this. Mark, did you want to talk? Because you said you had to leave a
Sure.
little early, so I wanted to get you in.
Sure. That may be a little bit of an exaggeration to say I'm an expert on this. But at any rate, yeah, just a couple of things. Talking with some of the folks here at DEQ that work a lot with stormwater. They've sent me some of the guidance documents, and I'm guessing Frank and Adam, you're probably familiar with the HDR guidance document that was put out. Yep, there you go. There it is. Yep. Yeah, good document. Definitely is not an exhaustive list of best management practices by any stretch, and probably, if anything, errs a little heavy on the overly designed, everything fits in a nice little box type approach. But in looking around at some of the stuff that's been done here in Helena, where I'm located, we actually have a large wet detention basin out behind our building, and we refer to it affectionately as Lake Metcalf, named after the building. But it's, they've done a number of things with that where it looks, I'm not going to say it looks natural because it's a very large hole dug in the ground, but it has a considerable amount of vegetation in it, around it. They do definitely keep the inlet and outlet clear, but that, and we have several others around town that some that are more detention ponds, that they've turned into kind of community parks, and have been pretty successful at kind of naturalizing some of those. Another thing from just kind of past experience a long time ago, and I used to work with the feedlot permitting program. Something that some of the folks there experimented with was kind of the vegetated treatment swales, which can be really challenging, depending on how you do them and how much space you have and all of that. Getting the flow through right, and getting it so that they do settle out nutrients, or settle out nutrients and sediment. But often those two can be a bit of a community asset, in that they add some green space. They cut down on some of the latent heat that comes from a lot of the hard surfaces. And they provide some urban habitat for birds and plants and things of that sort. I think that there are definitely some cases where really the only solution is a trapezoidal basin that holds things together and that gets cleaned out on a regular basis, and that it kind of fits that really kind of hard engineered type thing. But as you know, as when there is space and when there is opportunity to include some of those, again, kind of a more naturalized approach, I think there's some real benefit to nutrient uptake that you don't get in a grass swale. Most of your grass swales, if they're maintained as turf grass, requires some amount of fertilization, and then you're adding nutrients to the system, and sometimes with with some low growing shrubs, some willows or some even just like back behind the DQ building, there's a lot of cattail back there, and unfortunately there's Russian olives back there, but that's a whole nother story.
Good volume control.
Yeah. Yeah, that's but anyhow, just to get some additional nutrient uptake, some additional urban habitat, kind of softening of the hardscape, and that in that HDR document, there's there's a few mentions of having low growing shrubs or something of that sort. Again, getting them, sometimes there is a challenge. If you're like doing an infiltration basin, you probably don't want low growing shrubs because you accumulate just the leaves and such that'll then plug the thing up. But wherever possible, getting those co-benefits, definitely a good strategy. Yeah, that's all I got.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. And it sounds like you have some examples to maybe send to him too, as we're looking at the co-benefit piece.